Adam is Director of Client Services at EMI, and Jason is a Senior Account Executive at EMI. Over the past 5 years, Adam has managed the sample needs of full-service market research firms and brands for quantitative, qualitative, mobile, and community research across over 2,500 projects. His experience spans across multiple industries with a passion to being his client's advocate by knowing the best possible resource for each project. Adam is active with the MRA GLC chapter, serving as a communications chair. Jason has been a part of the EMI team for nearly 3 years and has managed the sample needs of full-service market research firms, management consulting firms, and brand advertising agencies around the world. His experience includes B2C, B2B, and healthcare sampling across numerous countries around the world, and he has a passion in providing the highest quality and most unbiased sample to each of his clients on a project-by-project basis. Adam and Jason will be talking about the ins and outs of international online research.
Thank you very much.
And I will note that you have started 5 minutes off, so you've got 20 minutes.
Thanks.
Right now.
Gifts.
Great. Thank you very much for the introduction. As you mentioned, I'm Jason Inderhees, Adam Jolley, and we work with EMI Online Research Solutions just north of the city in Hyde Park. And trying to decide how to approach this as a Q&A, really just wanted to narrow it in and focus on emerging markets. So we've boiled it down to and based it off of a presentation that we provided for the IIR on best practices in executing online research in emerging markets. Emerging markets. While this is a mobile conference, we obviously see a lot of parallels and several similarities between the two methodologies. And just been asked to share our findings from an online perspective, as we believe they're probably proved to be valid sooner rather than later in the mobile world as well. What do we mean by emerging markets? We're going after growth. And where do we go after growth? We're looking at companies like Pepsi Cola, looking at Coca-Cola, looking at Starbucks, Gap. Where are these people doing research, why they're doing research there, and what markets are going to be growing in the near future. And looking at that, we've boiled it down to 5. Obviously, for the sake of time, we could talk about international research for, hours, days. There's obviously conferences built around it in its entirety. So we boiled it down to 5 markets: Latin America, Asia, Turkey, Russia, and the Middle East. Again, why these markets? Yeah. Oh. Yep. Good. Okay. All right. So where was it? Why these markets? Obviously, North America and Europe, the big 5 countries in Europe, are very saturated. There's hundreds of thousands of respondents here. And again, we just want to go for markets these are the emerging markets. Whether you're mobile, whether you're doing telephone work, whether you're doing face-to-face interviews, these are where market research is moving, or the areas that market research is moving in. EMI has experience in over 80 countries in sampling. We've vetted and assessed over 300-plus panels over the past 13 years globally. And our overall number one goal is really to help companies make better decisions, obviously through quality research. And we hope to share some of the valuable insights that we've learned over the past 13 years and gathered that you find helpful in your next international market research session.
Yeah, so what makes us experts? And I think that Jason kind of touched on at the end, over 12,000 completed studies over 80 countries. This is something that we've presented to the IAR. This information isn't so much a sales pitch for EMI. If we can't do it, nobody can. It's more of what we've learned along the way, what we've learned from clients, what we've learned from going to conferences, SMR Asia, going and SMR Latin America, going to countries and seeing what really is capable online. So I know the first question is always the toughest. Everyone's jumping at it. But what we're going to do is we're going to start off just going through country by country. We'll stop in between, and you can ask questions on each country as we go. Jason's going to start us off talking about Latin America, and we'll progress on through there.
Yeah, Latin America, obviously, one of the emerging markets that we're focusing on. We're going to talk about a lot of the fun things you can experience when doing online research in these countries or geographic locations, and some of the challenges that we've ran into, and kind of the bumps and bruises that we've taken over the past 13 years. Higher costs, everybody, that's number one for us. Higher costs are going to be a big implication. You're looking at doing a study, say, as opposed to the United States or Canada, even the big 5 in Europe, you're going to experience a big price jump when looking at Brazil or Argentina or Chile. Good consumer and B2B targeting definitely available. The sheer panel and the online penetration, I should say, very high. So you're looking at minimum of 100,000 people, probably up to 300,000 and 400,000 in Brazil, Argentina, Mexico, Chile. The challenges that you're going to face are going to be those tougher like age groups, like the ages 50 plus. Getting to those folks is extremely hard, just due to their lack of online representation. Rural areas, getting outside of your tier 1 and tier 2 cities, you're going to experience some difficulties there because the online penetration, again, is just so low. So you get into the tier 3 and tier 4 cities, you're going to see some issues come up. Another challenge, the fact that income is defined in a completely different manner in Latin America. We look at income as, 100,000 plus household income, whereas they're looking at social classes, like social class A, B, C, D, and E. Obviously, these are completely different, and when sampling and doing international work, you have to take those things into consideration. The length of interviewing, we can do 60-minute interviews here in the United States. You get to 30 minutes plus, it's challenging in Latin America. Can it be done? Absolutely. But you get to that 45 mark, and that's where really we found that it's kind of a cutoff point. It's really reaching the ceiling as far as the length of interview is concerned. Last point for Latin America, just expect longer field time. You're going to run into issues where you can field a study 2 to 3 days in the United States. You're going to look week and a half, maybe even 2 weeks in Latin America. Now I'll pass it over to Adam to go over these.
Any questions about Latin America before we move on, about doing research in Latin America? Yes, John. Definitely, and I think it was starting before that. Brazil has it's been kind of the cup runneth over as far as Brazil and the growth in Latin America. Jason, you can speak more on it, but BRIC, I think, and you hear it throughout the conference, when does emerging become merged? And that's something that we'll talk a little bit more to. Brazil, with its economy growing, I think it's got the 6th highest GDP right now, just passed over the UK. It's something that's growing over, and from that you reap the rewards in Colombia and Venezuela and Argentina. The World Cup, the Olympics coming in another 4 years, this is only going to grow it even more. And I feel like Brazil is going to become like doing surveys in New York. The world becomes smaller, and Brazil is leading the charge. And Latin America is going to grow from that. All of the technology comes out of Brazil. All of the commerce comes out of Brazil. Anything?
No, just the sheer fact that it's the number one growing.
Yeah. Sure.
That's probably
Yeah. All right. I'm going to start talking about the APAC region. I feel a little bit of pressure with our PA here. Sorry. No, we break up APAC region into 2 different regions. We talk about established. We talk about emerging. Again, but that line is so blurry. When we talk about established, we talk about Korea, Japan, India, China. Places where internet penetration is peaking. It's sure you still have the same skews like Jason talked about where, in China it all goes towards the coast. It's tough to get those tier 3, tier 4 cities. With emerging markets, we talk more about Malaysia, Singapore, Philippines, Thailand, Taiwan. These are places with young audiences. You look at Malaysia, the over 40% of the population is under 14 years old. So online is rapidly growing, but hey, we're at a mobile conference. I think it's no coincidence that those are where the mobile growth rates are growing as well. More than one cell phone per household when we look in Asia. It's something that's growing more and more. Things to stay away from, similar to the U.S., you have a lot of sensitive topics. We look in emerging Asia, in places like Malaysia, with a higher Muslim rate. So we start to approach it like we would the Middle East. We stay away from topics like gambling, sex. We see skews towards males, which here in the U.S., if you're doing online, that seems just totally upside down. White is black, black is white. One of the things that we also see, like I talked about with age, the skew towards higher, and this goes for emerging or established. Getting someone over the age of 55 seems near impossible. And we see things in the field. This goes for overages. This goes for people outside of core urban markets using mobile, using tablets. and trying to reach those hard markets. We'll talk about that in the Middle East as well, emerging Africa as an emerging market, using mobile to go into those areas and do almost a face-to-face mobile to online, and really raising the growth of people that you could be able to reach. Any questions about the APAC region? Yeah, in the back. Sure.
For quantitative surveys, we've had problems for both regions in terms of getting good enumeration so that we would be able to project our numbers. Do you have any suggestions there in alleviating the pain in those regions?
Okay.
I didn't hear the very beginning of it.
That you just talked about have very poor establishment surveys. Usually we would like to get sound enumeration surveys so that we can do proper projections. But we constantly run into this problem in those two regions. I work for ComScore, by the way.
Thanks. Because I feel like, because maybe, and steer me if I'm wrong, I'm going to try to drive towards an answer. I think it's because of are you saying you don't have benchmarks on what to expect in those regions? Right. Right. I think it comes to using other than just one methodology to reach those people. Think about in the U.S. with what panels like a common knowledge, that's not a common knowledge networks, with what they do to find lower income, harder ethnicities, using kind of that mobile to online, doing a phone to web, using more of a river even. I mean, I'll even say that, getting someone that's more used to online traffic rather than driving towards that way. Dealing with things like internet cafes in regions like that. I think your skews in the U.S. are females and middle age. Your skews internationally are males, and you don't really know what else. And you have to be able to put feet on the street sometimes to bring the methodology to them to find what that representativeness is. We've tried when we first started fitting that round U.S. rep peg into the region whole, and it doesn't exist. It makes me. It's nice to know because you know there's a future, you know there's something you can improve to get better. But I really feel like we're a long way away from having representative sample without total controls in any of those regions, and any regions that we're going to talk about with emerging.
Yeah, it's definitely an issue not only in Latin America and Asia, but in some of the other ones that we're going to talk about, like Russia and the Middle East and Turkey. It's just a matter of the online population and what's there and what isn't there. And that's really what we're trying to bring, that transparency to the table and share, these best practices, if you will, to set expectations up front as to what you can expect from an online panel as opposed to telephone work and face-to-face methodologies.
I think mobile helps it. I really do. I mean, it might not be, online sample guy talking about a new methodology that might take away some of the market share, but mobile will help it. And mobile, using tablets, using phones to get with people, it's going to expand the market. It's going to expand the market, expand who we can reach with surveys. So we fully embrace it for that. All right. Any other questions? Sorry.
Yeah, a follow-up question to that. What would you use for a validation study, or would you recommend, let's say in India, right now a lot of that research is face-to-face still.
Right.
Would you recommend augmenting with face-to-face still for mobile, or would you say that mobile saturation in India right now, I think it's between 75 and 85%. That's what I've been hearing for, 6-month-old figures. Do you think that's high enough in India, since that's the only internet browser that folks are generally interacting with. What do you think it's time, or do you think we should still do some augmentation?
I think we still use augmentation. I think mainly because of the infrastructure of some of these emerging markets. Mobile, while it's there, it's tough to get a grasp, and I think you still have to use the face-to-face. And even then, you're still talking about urban markets, and I don't know how representative that is. We're talking about tier 1, tier 2 cities. 85% of all the land mass in China is not on the coast, and it's tough to find that representative. So I still think we do need to augment with it. It can't stand alone. Any other questions? Jason? Oh, I'm sorry, another question.
Another question I'm dying to ask you. In the emerging markets, there's a lot more access through internet cafes, which is a challenge to recruit from, right? Especially if you're doing something that's a sort of continuous studies as a longitudinal study. Any tips there in how we can best leverage the pool of possible sample you can get through internet cafes?
I think we've ran into this issue in the past where, you've got traffic coming in from different regions around the world, and all of a sudden people are all showing up with the same IP address. And it's based on the fact that they are stemming from one internet cafe. It's really, I think, getting around that is extremely hard. I don't know that there's a correct or one answer to get around it, but setting expectations up front, letting your client know this isn't out of the ordinary, and I'm not sure whether, well, you're with ComScore, so letting the client know this isn't unusual, this is expected, this is a cultural difference in some of these different countries. I think that's really the best you can do. Not really getting around it, but again, just making sure that that you're upfront and very, very transparent with and setting expectations.
Yeah, and one of the things we've worked at in China. There's something, the survey farm, where everyone sits in the same room and takes the same survey and just all rack up incentive points. It's hard to draw that line between a survey farm, which is a bad thing, and the internet cafe, which is a good thing. One of the things we've done is looked at trying to use mobile verification. I think it comes back to verification as something where you can make sure that it's not just one person, it's not similar thoughts, you don't have influence from other people in the internet cafe to answer the rest of the survey. Using mobile phones to verify, have them take the initial screener on their phone, which verifies it is just one person, it's not a whole group of them. That's one way we've been able to eliminate that and make it a little bit more acceptable. Yeah, I get you. I think closing thoughts, as much as I want to say that the future is now, there's still so much more with online that's changing, and I think you can expect to see more fluid changes. If there was one hurdle I would raise as far as everything, well, maybe I'll say two hurdles. It's the one, the verification, like we've been talking about, trying to get representation. And second of all, it's translation when you're doing internet. That's the biggest hurdle we run into whenever we get bad data back, is having a bad translation, not doing something in a native language. It's our biggest thing. Timing is another thing that we wanted to touch on, is having different time standards in each region. A survey that fields in Japan is going to field faster than a survey that fields in Brazil, just based on cultural. And lastly, I think the biggest push is push transparency on whoever you're using, whether you're using a local panel like an RPA in Asia, or you're using a GMI and eRewards in those areas. Ask for transparency. Ask who is really on the study. Ask what methodologies. Is it river? Is it router? Is it panel? And try to own that as much as you can. And I think you'll really steer away from having some of these consequences and pitfalls, and really learn representation a little bit better. I think we're out of time. Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
Appreciate it.